Hello everyone, I've had a couple people request I make a video about Mirko from My Hero Academia. This will be the first female physique I've made a video on, so shout out to the 3% of my viewers who are female. Hopefully you enjoy this one, and let's get into it. Alright, so in this first picture, she has a pretty flat stomach first of all, so she's at quite a low body fat percentage. Women naturally have about 10% higher body fat percentage than men because biologically women need to be capable of providing calories to a baby, and fat storage is a good way to do that. So it's much harder for women to get very lean, but she's not completely shredded, so this is definitely an achievable level. Like, you'll see plenty of girls at your gym who have a flat stomach like this. Keep in mind that people store fat differently. So you could be at 30% body fat but have a flat stomach because most of the fat is stored in your thighs, or you could be at 20% body fat and still have belly fat because that's where fat is stored on your body. Fat distribution is mostly genetic and can't be changed. What you can do is build the muscles in certain areas to create the shape you want. So don't drastically drop your calories in an attempt to lose fat because you'll mess up your hormones. Your metabolism will adjust to hold on to as much fat as possible because your body thinks it's starving. If you want to cut and lose fat, do it slowly by eating in a small caloric deficit like 200 to 500 calories and focus on building muscle. Muscle burns more calories than fat, so the more muscle you have, the more fat you'll lose. Building muscle should be the priority. So other than being fairly lean, we can clearly see she has quite nice quads, pretty defined, especially the vastus medialis on the inside of her knee. Overall, her thighs aren't super thick in this picture, probably because she's quite lean and she has quite long femurs. I think her physique is somewhat comparable to lean beef Patty, who you might have seen on TikTok or Instagram, although I think Patty is actually a lower body fat percentage and her femurs are a bit shorter. People will say that Patty is on steroids, so this physique is impossible naturally, but I've seen plenty of women who look this good in my gym. Steroids are not as common as social media would have you believe. This is what a female CrossFit athlete on steroids looks like for comparison. Notice the enormous traps, the huge shoulders and pecs. Like, she pretty much looks like she has a man's upper body, which you don't see on Patty's physique. And compare the left image where she's got a pump and really good lighting and angles to the right where she's more relaxed. Like, if you tell me that the picture on the right is someone who is on steroids, you're gonna sound a bit ridiculous. That's a completely naturally attainable physique. And I would say Mirko looks more like Patty on the left where she has a pump, but Patty doesn't look like that all the time, and you're not going to look like that all the time. Most of the time, if you get to a really good level, then you'll look like how Patty looks on the right picture. It looks like she has hip dips, so don't worry about trying to get rid of those if you have them, like, they're completely natural. She has decent looking calves, pretty big biceps and big shoulders. I think this is what makes her physique stand out compared to most gym girls. Like, she's got big shoulders and arms, which is typically what you see on male lifters, but she retains her kind of hourglass figure, which makes her look feminine. I would say the leaner you get and the bigger your like shoulders and arms and chest, the more masculine you appear, so that's something to take into consideration. Here we can see a bit of her glutes. There's not many shots of her glutes, mostly just her thighs, but her glutes are clearly pretty big, as you can see in this next picture. And you can also see her hips are much wider than her waist, so she has a nice waist to hip ratio, and this is mostly genetic, but you can build your glute medius and glute minimus to make your hips appear wider. And we can see her back is also fairly muscular. Here, obviously the thigh is what stands out, looking really muscular. Her vastus lateralis, especially on like the outside of her thigh, looks amazing. Basically her whole thigh and hip area looks really built. And this is the same picture but the manga version, and I think her thigh looks even bigger from this angle. Here her shoulders look great, and her calves as well. You can see like she's sitting down, her calves are looking pretty good. In this one, her arms especially I think look really jacked. Her thighs also look very good, and this is like the same picture but the manga version, and again her thigh looks amazing, her shoulders look really defined, her back even looks defined. In this picture it's her biceps, her shoulders and her chest looks really good. So her chest, we haven't seen much of it, but you can kind of see it in this picture, the way her chest like connects to her delt muscles. So she has a solid chest, but it's not like one of the highest priorities. So the highest priorities for this physique are definitely like the thighs, quads, hamstrings and glutes. Her arms are also pretty big and her shoulders are solid as well. Slightly less important are her back. So having a wide back is really important for having the hourglass shape. Her chest is also decent and she has decent calves as well. And then the things we don't really care that much about, neck and traps, really not important on this physique. And she has a flat stomach, but she doesn't have like blocky, bulky abs like you would see in someone who has trained their abs a lot. She just has a flat stomach because she's fairly lean, and that's how her fat is distributed. So now for the gym program I've put together. Again, the focus of this program is the muscles we just talked about in the priorities section. So we're going to start each workout with legs because that's the most important thing. On Monday, we'll do squats for 4 sets of 6 to 8. And you want to choose a weight that you can do within this rep range. So you can do like 4 sets of 6 maybe, and then only increase the weight once you've maxed out the rep range. So once you get 4 sets of 8 with that weight, then you increase the weight a little bit and work on maxing out that rep range with the new higher weight. So squats is going to hit your quads and your glutes, and then after that you can do Romanian deadlifts, which is going to be excellent for your hamstrings. After that is bench press, so mostly for the chest and shoulders and triceps, and then dumbbell lateral raises and dumbbell bent over lateral raises for the side delts and the rear delts, and I like to superset these two together. And then triceps push downs for your triceps and cable row for your back. Then on Tuesday we're having a bit of a break from the heavy leg stuff and doing some leg curls and extensions. If your machine has both of these in one, then you can superset these two together. After that, dumbbell overhead press for the front delts, and then barbell or easy bar curl for your biceps, close grip push-ups to failure for your triceps, also kind of your chest, and then inverted rows, 4 sets to failure, and you can superset the push-ups and the inverted rows together if you want, hitting the antagonistic muscles of like the push muscles, your chest and triceps, and then your pulling muscles, your back and biceps. And then finish off with some calf press for your calves. Rest on Wednesday, and then come back in on Thursday and do some heavy hip thrusts for your glutes. Most of my programs don't include any glute work because they're just not that important for most of the physiques I talk about, but in this case they are important. So hip thrust is basically the best heavy glute exercise that you can do, and then after you've done that, your glutes are going to be really tired, and you can do some squats for quite high reps. You're not using heavy weight on these squats, and you're really going to feel it in your glutes while you're doing these because you've kind of pre-exhausted the glutes before doing these squats. Then go to the cable station and do some cable lateral raises and cable reverse flies. You can superset those two together to hit your side delts and rear delts, and then dumbbell bench press for your chest, shoulders and triceps, and cable curl for your biceps. Then on Friday you can take a barbell or some dumbbells and do some reverse lunges, so you step backwards and do a lunge instead of stepping forwards, and this places more focus on the hamstrings and the glutes because we've already hit quads quite a lot this week and we want to focus more on the back side of the legs. And then after that, if your gym has a hip abduction machine, then use that to do some hip abductions. That's going to hit the gluteus medius and the gluteus minimus, which will build like the width of your hips, so like the side of your glutes, whereas the gluteus maximus is like the back and the middle of your glutes. If you don't have this machine, then you can do clam exercise. You could do like banded hip abductions laying on your side, or like wrap the band around both your legs and do like a crab shuffle to the side. Basically anything where you're moving your leg out to the side of your body, that's going to hit your gluteus medius and minimus, and it's going to have the same effect as the hip abduction machine. And then dumbbell curls for your biceps, overhead triceps extensions, preferably with a cable, but you can also use dumbbells or a barbell, and then dumbbell rows for your back, push-ups, 2 sets to failure for your chest, just to finish off the chest volume for the week, and then single leg calf raises, 4 sets to failure for your calves. And then you rest on Saturday and Sunday. Come back in the next week and try and beat the number of reps that you did the week before, or if you've maxed out the rep range, then increase the weight a little bit. For each of these exercises, rest about 3 minutes for the big compounds like squats, hip thrusts, RDLs, lunges and bench press, like these bigger, heavier movements, and then rest 1 to 2 minutes between sets for the exercises where you're using a lighter weight like curls, leg extensions and all the cable stuff, and you just want to get a pump in those muscles for those smaller exercises. And you can throw in some ab exercises on the off days or at the end of the workouts if that's important to you. Now, women's training is slightly different to men's because you have to take into consideration your menstrual cycle. So when you're on your period, that's when you are weakest. So I wouldn't recommend lifting heavy during your period. Generally, you need to let your body rest during this time. do some walking, yoga, Pilates, maybe some light weight training without lifting heavy or going close to failure. You need to listen to your body. During your ovulatory phase, you'll generally feel much stronger and hyped to go and lift heavy, so you can go for it then. And obviously, if you don't already, definitely track your cycle and alter your training accordingly. So let yourself rest during your period, and then you can really go for it during your ovulatory phase when you're feeling good. I'll just say a couple things about diet. Basically, you want to eat whole foods like meat, eggs, fruit, vegetables, nuts, dairy if you can tolerate it, and avoid processed foods. Basically, look at the ingredients label, and if it has more than one ingredient in it, generally think twice before buying it. If it's got loads of preservatives and all that, it's heavily processed, then stay away from that. Something that women often seem to neglect when they're trying to build muscle is eating enough protein. So you need to be eating about 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight, or 1.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. Muscle is built out of protein, so if you don't provide enough protein, you're not going to build muscle. And I also recommend eating in a small caloric surplus to provide the energy and the nutrients that you need to build muscle, because if you eat in a deficit, your body needs to use the calories that you eat just to survive, and it doesn't have much left over for building muscle, which is kind of a luxury. Like, having a lot of muscle is a luxury that you can only really have if you have plenty of food in your system. If you're not eating enough, then your body is just trying to stay alive and avoid starvation. Obviously, don't go overboard. Just 200 to 400 or 500 calorie surplus over your maintenance will generally be plenty to slowly build muscle over time. Hopefully you found this helpful. Let me know if you have any more questions in the comments, and I'll get around to answering them. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.